good place to start is with a definition of what play is.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we might need to justify it for audiences to know what we're talking about, so that we're justifying how it involves learning, and we're justifying how it, how important it is. But what is play? It's basically exploration, discovery, and done often for enjoyment, would be my definition in a nutshell. And if you're going with what Magda said, she pretty much said, play is happening anytime caregiving routines are not happening. So it's just how we interact, how young infants and children interact with the world. So that's a place to start.
I think that's an important definition, because I think that when play advocates are talking about play, we're talking about something that is definitely intrinsically motivated. A child has chosen to do it. It is not adult-led. It is child-driven, and that their attention is fully on it. They're not distracted from what they're doing. They're present to what they're doing. I think that is. Does anyone else have a kind of a definition that they use for play?
Yeah, I love that definition, so I really appreciate that. The piece that I want to bring is that I love so much out of RIE is that humans are playful. So, I mean, even humans shouldn't be saying just, right? Like, there is something intrinsically valuable in play that doesn't need justification, so that's a shame that comes up. And that what Magda saw in this teeny tiny infant was just the capacity to be a whole human, like completely, authentically, wholly human. And because of that, they are playful. And they like play. And the thing that I think is hilarious and wonderful, and it's so fun when this happens, is even in caregiving moments, they are so playful. They're little teasers, and this happens really, really young. And if you really go with them and follow them, they will take you on quite a journey of, not quite doing what you want them to do, or what you're requesting them to do. And I feel that this also lives in the realm of play. This sort of, I have my own idea here.
Right. Playfulness is definitely something that we forget. We forget, I don't know, as adults, that we kind of adopt this role of seriousness when it comes to children. We have to be teaching, and we have to be firm, and we have to, but playfulness, a little playfulness goes a long way. Too much playfulness can be overwhelming.
If it's authentic, and it always has to be a choice.
Yes.
Yeah. The other thing that's very interesting about play is that a child can be in their own kind of playful world in a play space, and they're not receiving care, and they're in sort of independent movement and freedom, and not seem focused. Like, they can be in these different states of being, and they could be like spacing. Looks like they're spacing out, but that could be play too, because it could be them contemplating or imagining or drifting off. And I mean, I just feel like I almost call everything they do when they are outside of that care play.
And I think, Melissa, you said when the caregiving isn't happening, the assumption is that for play to happen well, that really quality caregiving that's also imperfect is happening. And you see children now, even, their play can be therapeutic. I see my 3-year-old, playing trains and talking about the coronavirus coming and working through his feelings about the coronavirus. But he's also on the other side of that play, having, connection with me or his dad that kind of stabilizes him to go out and have that play, and then come back and go back and work through whatever it is he's working through at the time.
And I think that's a really, really important point, that if children aren't playing, I mean, maybe we'll get to this later, but if children aren't playing, it maybe you can come back to the relationship and the care and see if there was something that was lost or didn't get completed or wasn't full enough. And because a child who, like sometimes there's a child off in the corner, and I have a nursery school, so sometimes there's a child off in the corner being really quiet, and it's often looked at as, oh, they're being good, they're so quiet. But if they're not playing, you know, that could be, they could be flooded with cortisol, they could be scared, they could be not attended to and not feeling safe and needing more time with the adult.
And that's where observing comes in, right? Where we would notice that. When I used to do parent tours at the child care center I worked at, there would often be a child outside by themselves underneath a tree doing nothing. And parents would be concerned that they didn't have friends or that they, you know, were alone. And I would ask the parents, do you like to spend time alone, maybe in nature, underneath a tree, daydreaming? But of course, like Kimberly, like you say, if that's, you know, if there's something else going on, then we would need to notice that. But otherwise, playing alone and being able to be in one's own thoughts is a gift.
Yeah.
A really good discernment.
It is. I think that it is important. It's an important distinction to realize that independent play is a result. That drive is a result of quality care, of a child feeling secure and totally connected. And if they can't move on after a caregiving, like you said, they needed more from that experience than they got. And once they have that bucket full, it's very easy for them to move away and want to fulfill another drive other than I think
Right. If the relationship is secure, because there was, you know, 100% attention during those caregiving times, then they feel secure, just like secure based in attachment theory. They feel secure to then go out and explore. But if the attention is 50% or distracted, they'll continue with behavior seeking needs
or
to
anxious.
get those needs met.
Yeah, and I think that if we think about it from our own perspective, it is hard to attend to anything if you're feeling anxious, like Allison, you were just saying. It's anxious, and it's hard as a grown-up to attend to something if you're feeling anxious. You need to first manage your anxiety before you can attend to the thing that requires more work. Could we speak to that a little bit about just, you know, amongst early childhood educators, executive function is a big topic, and people will geek out to that a lot. But it is a piece that sometimes doesn't get brought from research into the parent kind of realm, and parents don't often know or understand, and perhaps as professionals we're not doing a great job of explaining how play builds the foundation for this later academic success, which is so important to early childhood educators, but sometimes doesn't resonate as much with parents. Can we speak to that a little bit, just of how play actually does grow your brain?
Oh, sure. I mean, play, I don't even know where to start with that big question, Kelly, but play, you know, it gives children time to develop attention span, for example. Like if you're talking about learning and academics, you know, attention span, problem solving, critical thinking skills, relationships of themselves and materials and others, being able to choose your own activities. It gives them a chance to learn about what they're capable of and what their interests are. All of those things, self-confidence, you know, all of those things are needed for academic learning. And so that kind of gives them a base to spring off of.
And I think that's where RIE really does support the Waldorf method or Montessori, or, you know, a purely play-based method, because they all do allow for a child to truly concentrate. You know, they each in and of themselves allow for just a child to fully kind of immerse themselves in whatever it is that they're interested in. They each allow for the child to experience beginning, a middle, and an end, and to kind of have closure. And I think that in and of itself, most children in more traditional settings don't have that experience. Mm-hmm. And I think that does, children that whether that be a child who was in a Waldorf setting or a Montessori setting, those children have a greater sense of kind of what they're interested in later on in life. They have an ability to make choices because early on they were given the opportunity to make choices with trust. And it's just interesting to see how, providing those environments at a very early age really does, you see that transfer into later in childhood. And I'm sure both Kim and Melissa can speak to that. I'm kind of in the thick of it, of seeing that unfold with my 7-year-old. But it's definitely interesting, creating that space and allowing for real concentration to happen. It does have results that you see even early on.
Yeah, and I think too, another thing that is really important about play is how, especially a 2-year-old, I mean, no one moves more in their lifespan except a 2-year-old, and a 3-year-old second. And I think, there is something about being free to move that is part of a child's play. And they don't, although they stay still and concentrate a lot, I do observe that a lot, they also move a lot. They move their hands a lot, their feet a lot, their body a lot. They move things around within the room. They move items around. They get under things and over things and through things. They're moving a lot. And there is some information that it's movement that feeds our brain. Like for elderly people, it's better if they move than do crossword puzzles. We all thought that we had to do crossword puzzles. No, we need to move. And so I just love the freedom of movement that we offer children through this RIE view.